The next unit of study is quadratics, and knowing about quadratics means knowing about polynomials. Polynomials come from the word poly, meaning many, and nomial, in this case, meaning term. So a polynomial has many terms. A polynomial can have constants, which are just positive or negative integers, whole number, whole and integers, period. So it can be fractional or whole numbers. So you can have 3, -20, or a half as constants in your polynomial. You can also have variables. You can have one variable, or you can have more than one variable, like X, Y, A, Z, B, D, any letter of the alphabet pretty much. And exponents that are whole numbers and positive. You can have any fractional exponents or any negative exponents. Polynomials can be added, subtracted, multiplied, and divided. But when you are dividing polynomials, you cannot have a variable in your denominator, as stated right here. So you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide, except division by a variable. You cannot divide by a variable. So 2 divided by x is not a polynomial. Remember, polynomials can have constants, variables, exponents, but never division by a variable. Below are some examples right here of things that are polynomials and things that are not. 3x is a polynomial and it's one-termed. X minus 2 is a polynomial, but it has 2 terms. X is a term, -2 is a term, or 2 is a term. This polynomial has 2 terms, -6y squared is a term, 7/9 x is a term. This polynomial here has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. So this polynomial has 5 terms. This is a polynomial. It has 2 terms. And this is a constant, which is a polynomial with only 1 term. Okay. What makes these polynomials is that they fit the criteria. They are terms that have variables in them. They have a constant. They have positive exponents, no fractional exponents, and there is no division by a variable. So all of these will classify as polynomials. Okay. These are not polynomials. This has a negative exponent. It's one term with a negative exponent, and it's not a polynomial. This is not a polynomial because you're dividing by a variable. This is not a polynomial for the same reason. You're dividing by a variable. This is not a polynomial because the exponent is 1/2 and you can't have fractional exponents. So this would not be a polynomial. X divided by 2, you can take the variable and divide it by a constant, and this is a polynomial. You can also multiply a variable by a constant and divide by a constant, and this would be a variable because I'm still dividing by a constant and not a variable. Square root of 2 is allowed because it is a constant. I'll get a positive integer or a mixed number for the square root of 2, so this would be classified as a polynomial. Now remember, the terms in a polynomial, I counted the terms and some had 1, some had 2, some had 3, some had 5. Those are named, they have special names. They are special kind of polynomials. A one-term polynomial is called a monomial. A 2-term polynomial is a binomial, and a 3-term polynomial is a trinomial. Okay, terms are separated by the mathematical symbols like subtraction, addition, division, multiplication. So these monomial, binomial, trinomial are referencing the number of terms in the polynomial. Polynomials can have as many terms as you want to put in the polynomial, but it cannot be an infinite number of terms. So it has to be, it has to end. It can't be just an infinite number of polynomials. There are 4-term polynomials called quadrinomials and 5-term polynomials called quintinomials. But we don't really use those names often. You may run across those in your higher level math classes. But as far as Common Core Math 1 go, you don't really have to worry about those. Alright, so polynomials can have no variables, 1 variable, or 2 or more variables. This is an example of a polynomial with no variable. This is an example of a polynomial with 1 variable, and this is an example of a polynomial with 2 or more variables. This polynomial has a degree of 0 because there is no variable. This polynomial has a degree of 4 because the highest exponent in the expression is a 4. And this polynomial has a degree of 5 because in this particular polynomial, the x and the y both have exponents. X has an understood 1 as its exponent, y has a 4, so you would add 1 plus 4, that makes 5. So the degree of this polynomial would be 5. This term actually has a degree of 3 because 2 plus 1, this z has an understood 1 as its exponent, and that's 3. So the highest degree of this binomial, because it has 2 terms, would be 5 because 1 plus 4, as I stated before, makes 5. So basically, to find the degree of the polynomial, you have to add the exponent. If there's more than one variable, you have to add their exponents together for that term. X, y to the 4th is one term, so you would add the exponents for this term to get the degree. And then the highest value of the exponent is the degree. Alright, so you can add you can graph polynomials, and when you graph polynomials, it's easy when because they have smooth continuous lines. When you have one variable like this one, x to the 4th minus 2x squared plus x, so it has nice smooth curves and easy to graph. You can also divide polynomials, but the result may not be a polynomial. The degree of the polynomial with only one variable is the largest exponent of that variable. So in this trinomial, because there's 3 terms, 1, 2, 3, the highest degree of the variable is 3, because this exponent is to the 3rd power, this is to the 1st power, and remember, constants are 0, meaning there is no variable, not 3 to the 0. It just has a degree of 0 because there's no variable with this constant. Putting the polynomial in standard form requires that you order the exponents in descending order. So here is an example of a polynomial not in standard form. To put this in standard form, we need to first determine the highest value of the exponent for the variable. And if you look here, this variable has an exponent of 2. This constant would be 0, or degree of 0. This variable, this x variable, in this term would have a degree of 3, and this would have a degree of 6. So the highest value of the exponent is 6. So 6 would go first, and then your cubed, and then your squared, and then your 0. So this quadrinomial has a degree of 6 because the highest value of the exponent is 6. Let's go through some sample questions, and you can also go to this website on your own. It is mathisfun.com, and when you get to mathisfun.com, you can type in polynomials, or you can just type into the Google search engine polynomials and click on the Math is Fun website. Let's try a few questions. Alright, question 1 doesn't want to pop up, so let's try question 2. Question 2 doesn't want to pop up. Well, what you need to do is just go to this website, and you can play around with some of these questions on your own. Remember, fractions are not allowed as exponents for polynomials. Variables cannot be in the denominator, meaning you cannot divide by variables. You can have positive exponents in polynomials. You can have variables, 1 or more in polynomials, and the degree is determined by the value of the highest exponent. You also can determine what type of polynomial it is by how many terms it has. So if it has 1 term, it's a monomial. If it has 2 terms, it's a binomial. And if it has 3 terms, it's a trinomial. Just like a monocycle has 1 wheel, a bicycle has 2 wheels, and a tricycle has 3 wheels. The polynomials monomial, binomial, and trinomial work the same way. This has 1 term, monomial does. Binomial has 2 terms. Trinomial has 3 terms.